Hello everyone and welcome back to Planet Coaster. We will be continuing work on the Cathedral of Light today. Even though it is just one building, I'm still not complete with it. It is a little bit more complicated to just copy something. Making something up on your own can be relatively easier simply due to the fact that there are no real rules to follow beyond making it look like it's a sound building. It is a kind of believable building. And so the trouble you run into when you're doing recreations is the fact that you have to start getting things to look relatively like it would from your reference material. Now, not saying you guys shouldn't do this, but I'm just saying that keep that in mind when you are going and attempting this kind of stuff. We're going to start initially by working on the front facade a little bit over the doorway, and this is going to evolve and have a couple different variations. I'm trying to find a piece that gives it its sculpted look that is in World of Warcraft, and it is not quite an easy task. I wanted something that looked very fluted, very eloquent, and normally you would use these sign pieces using their metal kind of rods to get your curls and your movement throughout a single wall piece. Sadly, we just didn't have enough room to sink them in well enough to hide the sign part of it. It's not a big deal, and so I try maybe, working on my own little pattern by using custom shapes, not really liking that very much. And later on we settle for a different design, a little bit different. It's actually a little bit more straightforward of a design. And then also at this point I figured out, hey, I should probably look at the side view of the cathedral. And I actually had a friend go into World of Warcraft, as I don't really play it anymore. I actually don't have an active account or anything like that, and had him gather some side view screenshots for me because I haven't been able to really find any good ones. And in doing so, revealed that the main corridor isn't short. I thought it was actually a short corridor based on just the front screenshots, which is why you need these side ones to give you a little bit more information than that little bit. So there will be some skips through here, as I want to try and save time. It was a long build process, surprisingly, just due to the odd angles of things and the layout of the cathedral in certain ways. And some of you guys who don't know World of Warcraft, and me calling this a cathedral, you might be a little confused as to why there's no flying buttresses or anything of that sort. I know I got actually a really good comment from someone roughly portraying what a cathedral generally has. Flying buttresses, Gothic arches, Gothic elements, and saying that mine doesn't look like it, but they don't know the source material, which is fine. And it is weird to call this a cathedral. World of Warcraft has quite an interesting art style. It's basically they tried to mimic the art style of Warcraft 3 and carry that through into their MMO. And it has this exaggerated kind of fluted look. So it's very wide at the base and gets narrow at the top. And they also didn't really, in my opinion, have the technology at the time to do these elaborate flying buttresses. And so what they did was they did normal buttressing, just adding a column to the outside. That's what buttressing is. Flying is basically just the extra element of making it more eloquent and more Gothic by making, passageways of open space along the side, because that's what cathedrals allowed people to do, was to make more open buildings than ever before by using arches. And Warcraft just doesn't have that kind of architecture, so it's a pretty interesting note to call this a cathedral, but in reality it's pretty much not a cathedral. Now the main part of today's build is this is the main spire over the nave, and I forget the other direction off the top of my head, but this is basically the center point of the cross of the cathedral. And it is quite the interesting shape and what they have going on here with this thing. So they do have buttressing going along the outside of it, which is interesting as to the fact that it is completely an unorganic shape. It's not even a modern shape. It's this weird, it's almost like a flanged mace shape if you think about it. So the spire is this tall mace, and these buttresses that we spend so much time laying out are the flanges on them, causing extra damage and things like that. Now those flanges, I actually ended up skipping a lot of them, and initially I wanted to try maybe, hey, let's just start building and going from there, copying things over, and I tried a couple different methods to get this to work. Initially also, it was a little short, and it wasn't quite wide enough. Looking at the screenshots, I was thinking, well, I could get away with maybe getting these 45-degree angle corner pieces just sticking out, but based on the reference material, it just wasn't going to work out for us. And, you know, I might actually pop in just one of my reference materials here, just so that you guys can see what I'm referencing by these little flanges coming off of the main spire. And getting the angle correct is pretty hard on these cases. And so what I end up doing in the long run is something similar to what we just did in our theme park build with the Sidewinder. What I want to end up doing is building a scaffolding system out of wood planks so that we can get the base shape correct. And here, you know, just struggling using possibly the stone, but you can see I want to mark out where the flange is going to connect to the building flush, and then I'm going to have to eyeball basically like everything else, as I don't know the exact measurements of the cathedral, these additional elements. So they're basically, they're almost like diamond shaped wings that are attached to the side of the building. And when you do something like that, it's quite the complicated shape. So you can see that it's connecting vertically along the main wall, and then from there it actually shifts to a different point, and you create a lot of triangle vertices by doing this. And doing the custom skin is something that we're going to be skipping over this episode because it just simply took that long. Unlike the Sidewinder, where it's kind of more of a simplistic shape of just a couple vertices and walls to work with, this one is a lot more intense, and also the space wasn't quite right to try and get some pieces in there. But luckily, I got it skinned off camera, and I got it looking really nice. And hopefully, you know, we can cut to that soon enough. Just trying to make sure these elements line up as well as possible, because when you're doing a non-symmetrical item on top of a symmetrical build, it becomes the challenge of you have no real grid reference anymore. You just have these loose boxes that you're trying to just eyeball and change the direction to. And what I found was these long pieces of wood are great for that, simply because their axis point is actually right at the very tip of it. And so they are relatively easy to aim, unlike some other pieces that have the axis point in the center of the object. And so you can really point these things roughly to how you think should be connected up, and you can see that awkward kind of triangle vertices on the interior angle there, and it really pushes this thing to have just multiple faces. So now we are past the skinning point. It actually took 2 layers of skin to make this thing work. I did a rough layer of the new scenery objects, and then I put a stone layer over it to give us our stone texture, because this is a 100% stone building. And at this point, we are free to move on to the rest of the upper spire. Now, the upper spire consists of a large window kind of embedded up there. It has also some buttressing to the left and the right, kind of making it a little thicker. There's also some decorative patterns, a little bit almost like a roof element over that window. And, you know, again, when you're doing this, you do want to still copy and paste, rotate things around so that you're able to make sure things are lining up correctly, essentially. Here, above the flanges, there Flanges is such a weird word. Flanges. You know, flangi? No. Anyways, there are these little corner spires as well. And these are smaller spires, and they just kind of attach and seal the top of these elements to make it look, I guess, a little bit more grand. I think really they were just like, let's add more detail, and that's what they came up with. Now, these ones are going to have custom roofs, unlike the lower levels. In fact, because I managed to do this one correctly, I do want to go back in and work on the lower ones to give them their proper peaked roof that they would have in the game and color them gray instead of the roof color. And I think that'll look nicer in all, but we just have to take a little bit of time to do that. There's also a kind of a semicircled piece here that we're going to be able to copy around, and that's just going to attach each of these little spires and make it look a little bit more decorative. And once we make this box here, we'll go ahead and make the final corner piece of the large spire. Now, this is the tallest this building is going to be. This is the main final little tip. In fact, I'm surprised that there's not more adornments on these things. Normal cathedrals would probably put plenty of gold, ribbing across these roof lines. And the game, just because of how old it is, I mean, this game came out in 2004, if you can believe that, is I don't think they ever considered making the thing look really, really, really nice by adding a whole bunch of little layers on top of just their base shape that can read from a distance. And that's kind of where we're at on this build, and we'll color this, gray, just like everything else. Everything's supposed to look stone and kind of monochrome, if you think about it. Unselecting the center column there, and then we are ready to basically copy this thing around, which takes a little bit of time to highlight everything, and then it is just a simple copy and paste and realign to the grid. So let's go ahead and take a look at the current stuff in real time, and you guys can give me feedback if necessary. Okay, so here we are with the real-time look and a little bit of a slower pan so you guys can kind of see how everything turned out. You can see the front facade here. It's a little bit more layered. We're basically just using the arches here in different directions and inlays to give us a little bit more depth to this item, and also it still has these curled elements which, from a distance reads well enough. I mean, really the size of a person on this thing compared to the rest of the building is really small. So this is a giant structure that you guys will be able to hopefully put in your park here soon. And once I roll out the carpet, this should have a blue carpet coming up the staircase as well. But obviously the main spire is actually about halfway into the building. So we have about another half to go, and luckily the back half and the wing, because it actually only has one wing to the right here and doesn't have anything on the left, is relatively short and simple. It becomes kind of a more boxy structure. The only complicated thing left to really make are the little spires that go on each of the corners, and then also they are a little bit larger and differently laid out than the front ones. So sadly I can't really use these over and over again, as this is a little bit more of a wider base. And then as we go back along the structure, you can see the foundation is just kind of a solid square footprint that people can kind of really get closer to the building itself. The spire turned out really well. We have the 3 large windows and the larger upper window. In fact, I'm going to change the lighting a little bit just so you can see inside the shadowy areas a little bit better. And what I did for the stone is used some of, what item is this? This is the castle balcony support, and the tops of them is this very nice smooth stone, kind of larger pieces, and contrast with the castle. And also it's gray, so it matches some of the detailing on the windows and things like that. And we just basically line them up with the angles. We put a centerpiece just as a little bit of a decoration, almost like a something to run along the spine to look like it's maybe holding them together a little bit more. It's on large footstones here, and hopefully when we add the roof and the wing, it will make a little bit more sense, because the roof line actually should align to the bottom of these, and the roof and the rest of the width of the building will come out from here. So it won't look like it's floating in air as much once we have those detailed pieces in there. But yeah, from all the sides, you know, it's quite a nice little piece from a distance, and quite the weenie if you think about it. If we go over just to the entrance, I had to put down some shops so we get some people in here. It's pretty big, and you know, hopefully I can get the part count to go down. Right now we're sitting at 4,888 pieces. Not a whole lot yet. I mean, our Pokemon Stadium was a lot larger, but that also was a multiple day build to do. And the interior, you can see as we start layering stuff, you can just slowly take away some of these parts that are hidden from the rest of the structure, and that will lower our part count down, make it a little bit more of an efficient build, and allow us to divide it up in an easy way so that you can attach these in multiple parts from the workshop a lot easier and doable. Now, the Spire consists of a lot of pieces because it has two outer skins on these flanges. In fact, if you go inside, you can see that we have, this is part of the first skin that was laid out, and then the balcony pieces make up the outer shell, and we even have some other supports. It is an absolute mess inside this structure, though everywhere else is kind of open enough. If I wanted to, I could put a small interior in here. It wouldn't be anything close to what's actually in the game, because obviously Cathedral interiors are very open, and this is just messy. It looks pretty cool when you look under it, though. Nice little plus sign going on there. I don't know what's causing that. What is that? Ah, that's a little bay window. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed today's episode, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more creative goodness. Go ahead and hit that like button so I know that you guys enjoy Planet Coaster and, you know, what I've been working on. Go ahead and check out our park. We are working on a theme park. It is a sci-fi theme, totally different than what you're looking at now. Very futuristic, inspired by Elite Dangerous, and it looks like you guys enjoy that a whole lot, and I do thank you guys for the support there. And until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next episode.